Imagine a creature tall enough to sprint through 7 feet of snow like it is nothing at all. That is exactly what new footage from the Wasatch Front reveals, and it is putting the world on edge. Bryce Johnson and his researchers are diving deep into these sightings.
Wait, there's another opening. Looks like 2 tunnels in there.
Holy cow, that's wild.
Connecting them to a chilling special ops mission from 1994. Basically, the military has known about these 9-foot-tall giants for decades. This script reveals the hidden maps and the screams in the night that operatives were told to keep quiet. The truth is finally coming out, hands down. Oregon's darkest shafts. Deep in the rugged wilderness of Oregon, the crew was on a mission that felt different from the start. This place is not just a collection of trees and trails. It is remote, wild, and crawling with a sense of mystery that makes your heart race. It is exactly the kind of area that fuels legends. The air is thick with the scent of pine, but there is an eerie silence that makes your skin crawl. That is when the team found it. An abandoned mine shaft sat there like an open mouth in the side of the mountain. It looked like it had not been touched in decades. The wood was rotting, and the entrance was far too unstable for any person to enter safely. But it was also too tempting to ignore. Bryce Johnson knew they had to see what was inside. So, the team did what they do best and sent in the drone. This was not just a toy. It was loaded with high-end sensors, thermal cameras, and it was piloted by someone who truly knew what they were doing. As it crept into the dark, tight passages of the shaft, everyone held their breath. Suddenly, there was a total blackout. The drone lost all connection instantly. And that is not supposed to happen. At that range, the most they would expect is a fuzzy video feed or maybe some frame drops. Instead, there was a full signal loss. The high-definition video feed, and even the control system, went dead at once. The pilot was stunned. She had never seen anything like it. Normally, there are warning signs, but this was instantaneous. The drone was built to handle tough conditions, but something interfered with it. To the experts, there were only 2 possible explanations. It was either intense wind or a sudden shift in gravity. But they felt no wind. It was as if something did not want them seeing what was inside that dark hole. With no way to recover the signal, the crew moved to the other side of the ridge. They suspected the mine tunneled straight through and thought they could reach the drone from the opposite end. At first, there was nothing but cold rock. Then, they made a connection. Only this was not just one tunnel. The cave split. One tunnel went through, but another veered off west. That part was not on any map. Driven by curiosity, the pilot guided the drone into that unexplored western path. And then it got weird. As the drone flew deeper, it picked up something no one expected. Green plants were growing hundreds of feet underground. That should be impossible. There is no natural light down there to help them grow. Team member Maria pointed out that those plants did not grow there naturally. Something had to bring them in. Maybe it was for nesting or bedding. Something carried them deep inside that shaft for a reason. The drone flew even further, reaching yet another tunnel branching south. Russell looked at the footage and made a chilling observation. This was not just a mine. It could be a full-blown underground network. It was a system of tunnels that something could use to move in and out without anyone ever seeing them. If something really was hiding in those mines, it was a master of camouflage. The team pushed the drone toward a newly found tunnel, hoping for proof. But just as they were getting somewhere, the connection issues returned. The pilot made the call to stop. Something was clearly interfering, and it was not worth losing all their gear. To Bryce, that decision stung. He knew that deep inside that cave, there might have been real answers. Still, they made a wild discovery while packing up. Maria spotted hair samples. There were reddish-brown and whitish strands clinging to the rough edges of the rocks. Her first instinct was to tell everyone not to touch them. She rushed to get her collection kit for a clean sample. Nobody knew what the hair belonged to, but it was another piece of the mystery. The team had also set up a 24-hour camera near the site. Bryce combed through it and saw something that froze him. A large humanoid figure was passing through the trees. It was fast, but the shape did not look like any wildlife you would expect. It was the kind of clip that makes you question everything. This sighting was only the beginning of a much larger pattern of strange activity. Hidden forest giants. During a separate expedition, Russell was scanning the forest with his camera when he spotted something in the distance. At first, he thought it was a bear. That would have made sense because bears are common in the area. The creature had thick blackish-brown fur, but then it did something bears do not normally do. It stood up. It did not stand like a clumsy bear wobbling on its hind legs. It stood straight up, balanced and steady like a person. Then it walked into the woods and vanished. Russell was stunned. He ran the footage back and showed it to Zach. He could not believe how easily it moved. Even in replay, it did not make sense. It looked like the creature had been squatting, maybe watching them. The way it moved, upright and confident, did not match a bear at all. Bears can stand, sure, but not with that kind of balance. Russell tried to scan the tree line again, but it was gone just like that. After this sighting, Russell had to check out the exact area where the figure appeared. He hoped for footprints or more hair. After some searching, he called the crew back to camp. He had something big to show. Everyone gathered around, buzzing with questions. He hit play on the camera. At first, the footage looked simple. It was a distant shape moving along the hillside over a mile away. It looked like a bear at first glance because it was low to the ground. But then it moved. It stood up smoothly. Russell slowed the footage down to give them a better look. Bryce and Maria leaned in. To them, this was not a false alarm. That creature moved too human-like. It was tall and walking upright like it had no problem on two legs. Mia, the team scientist, noticed the head. It moved vertically and looked around in a very deliberate way. That kind of movement is not something a bear does naturally. Based on everything they knew about the animals there, nothing else fit. To Maria, it seemed like they had captured something truly valuable. But the story did not stop there. Another team of researchers had received strange footage from a man named John. He had been out in the mountains near the Wasatch Front. This area is already tied to many sightings. John claimed to have caught something that would blow the case wide open. John and his friends were filming from a valley at about 4,200 feet. They were using a spotting telescope to look at a peak nearly 9,000 feet high. That is almost a mile straight up. And what they saw was moving fast. At first, they just saw a dark figure crossing the ridge. But then it started climbing straight up the snowy slope. They had to press their camera lens right up to the telescope just to keep up. The creature was running with ease through snow that was nearly 90 inches deep. That is over 7 feet of snow. And it was not just moving. It was sprinting like the snow did not even matter. No struggle and no slipping. Just raw speed and power uphill through snow that would stop any person. The footage was sent to the researchers, and they were cautious at first. But frame-by-frame analysis showed a large bipedal creature running on two legs. At one point, it even paused before bolting again. The more they watched, the less it made sense. For anything to move like that in that depth of snow, it had to be massive. It had to be tall enough for its legs to lift out of the snow, and strong enough to power through with no resistance. The researchers were floored. It looked impossible. They wanted to prove just how hard it would be for a person to move like that. So they went to a creek with only 18 inches of snow. One team member named Sky tried walking through it. He was 6 feet tall and very strong, but he struggled just to take a few steps. Running was totally out of the question. If the creature on camera was real, it had to be way taller than Sky. The snow on the mountain was 5 times deeper than what Sky faced. That fact left the team stunned. They wondered if there were tracks left behind. A helicopter pilot decided to fly over the ridge to see for himself. And there they were. Huge, deep tracks lined up with the creature's path. The winds were wiping them away, but the trail was clear. John never said the creature was Bigfoot, but he reported what he saw. The terrain was steep and the snow was deep, yet something had charged up that mountain without hesitation. To the researchers, the tracks felt familiar. Past investigations showed long, steady strides where footprints were placed directly in front of one another. It was like the creature was walking a tightrope. This matching trackway brought up the same question. What kind of creature could do this? While the mountain footage was incredible, it was nothing compared to a secret military report. Special Operations Cold Trail. Back in February 1994, deep in the icy wilderness of Alaska, a special operations team was on a covert mission. One of those members was named Miles. Their goal was to move quietly, observe, and leave without anyone knowing. But something forced them to turn back much sooner than planned. These were not hikers. These were trained operatives prepared for the worst. They had skis, winter gear, and military packs to handle freezing temperatures. The team started near Fairbanks and headed east past the Air Force Base. They faced steep hills and thick woods. Miles decided they needed to assess a dense forest to see if they could pass. He told 2 team members to switch to snowshoes and scout ahead. What they found was not part of any normal mission. They stumbled upon a series of large footprints. Each one was about 18 inches long and spaced 5 feet apart. That got their attention immediately. Miles pulled out a tape measure for a closer look. These were not random marks. The prints were deep and clean. Whatever made them was moving smoothly and lifting its legs high out of the snow. That kind of stride pointed to something really tall. One soldier tried to walk through the same snow without snowshoes and sank to his knees instantly. He could not even walk normally, let alone move like the creature. Some of the team thought it might be a local animal, but others were starting to think it was not natural at all. They called in their expert tracker, who had spent years studying footprints. He looked at the tracks and saw real toe shapes. Based on the stride, he guessed the creature was around 9 feet tall and weighed between 500 and 700 pounds. Those numbers were beyond anything seen in the wild. The team decided to keep tracking it. The prints moved along ridges and stayed in thick forest to avoid open areas. That showed the creature was using the terrain to stay hidden, just like the soldiers were. Moving through that snow was not easy, and the cold was harsh. They followed the trail as far as they could before night fell. They set up camp and tried to get some rest. Everything was quiet for a while. Then, around 4 in the morning, Miles woke up suddenly. He heard a sound in the distance that echoed across the trees. It was long and deep. It was a howl, but not like a wolf. It had a strange depth to it, more like a roar. It felt bigger and heavier. Miles sat up and listened as the rest of the forest went silent. It was like the woods were holding their breath. But that silence did not last. A new, louder sound started approaching the camp. At first, they thought it was a moose. The noise grew louder and then stopped just 100 feet away. Miles felt like they were being watched. He thought the creature was studying them. Then the sound returned from another direction. It paced back and forth, snapping heavy branches under its weight. Now the whole team was awake and on alert. Their tracker led them toward the sound, but it stopped again. Then came the howl once more. It was a scream that grew into a roar. The sound sent chills through every man. What started as a training mission was turning into something they could not explain. Another chilling scream rolled through the trees. They swept the forest with flashlights but saw nothing. They were not well armed and felt very exposed. The creature seemed too clever to be random. It had circled them and stayed hidden. Just before dawn, they heard a tree fall with massive force. That was enough for Miles. He ordered everyone to pack up and leave at sunrise. Before heading out, he scanned the area and found fresh footprints. Another towering pine tree had been freshly broken. The evidence was undeniable. Miles knew this was not a story to tell back at base. The team agreed to stay silent to avoid rumors. But after returning, Miles learned something strange from a survival expert named Anthony. He had trained at a survival school in Washington. The government-issued maps there had details about wildlife and terrain. But one detail stood out. On the map, alongside the normal animals, was a drawing of a Sasquatch. That image lit a spark in Miles. They were not imagining things. Maybe the government knew more than they let on. Whatever left those prints moved with stealth and grace that no animal could match. The map raised so many questions. After Alaska, Miles and his team were changed forever. Their view of the wilderness was never the same. Nothing had prepared them for what they found on that icy trail. The consistency of these reports from Oregon to Alaska suggests a massive biological mystery. Hidden government records. The map at the survival school was not the only piece of evidence suggesting that officials know about these giants. If you look at the way these encounters are handled, a clear pattern of avoidance and silence emerges. For starters, many witnesses in national parks report being told by rangers to keep their sightings quiet. They are often told that what they saw was just a bear or a trick of the light, even when the details do not match. But here is the catch. The technical data from the Expedition Bigfoot drone suggests that these creatures might have a biological way to interfere with electronics. That total blackout in the Oregon mine was not a coincidence. Yeah, about that. Some researchers believe that Bigfoot might emit a low-frequency sound or an electromagnetic field that disrupts sensors. This would explain why so many clear shots turn out fuzzy, or why equipment fails at the exact moment a sighting happens. What most people do not realize is that 90 inches of snow should be an absolute barrier to any land animal. Yet the Wasatch Front creature moved through it like it was walking on a paved road. This points to a physical strength that is almost hard to calculate. If a creature weighs 700 pounds and stands 9 feet tall, its bone density and muscle fibers would have to be much stronger than ours. So, here is the deal. We are looking at an apex predator that has mastered the art of staying off the grid. The military operatives in Alaska saw tracks that avoided open spaces with surgical precision. This is not the behavior of a dumb animal. It is the strategy of something that understands observation. It knows how to use the ridgelines and the thickest brush to stay out of sight. And get this. The broken trees found by Miles were not just knocked over. They were snapped with a twisting motion that requires immense grip strength. Basically, these creatures are marking their territory in a way that other animals can understand from a mile away. The survival school map including a Sasquatch is a key detail because it shows that for those living in the extreme wild, this is not a myth. It is a reality you have to be prepared for. Hands down, the most terrifying part is the realization that they might be watching us much more often than we are watching them. See, the way the creature paced around the special ops camp shows a level of curiosity mixed with a warning. It was not trying to end their lives, but it was definitely telling them to leave. The silence of the forest after the roar is a sign of total dominance. Every other animal knows to be quiet when the king of the woods speaks. There are still many rumors on the air about underground bases, but the mine network found by Bryce Johnson is a more down-to-earth explanation. These shafts provide the perfect shelter from the elements and from human eyes. It is not that simple to just go in and find them, though. As we saw, the Earth itself seems to protect its secrets through unstable ground and technical interference. The mystery deepens every time we think we are close to an answer. Cinnabar secrets and beyond. The rock found deep within those abandoned Oregon mines is known as Cinnabar, and while it might look like a mere geological curiosity to the untrained eye, it serves as a cornerstone for a much darker mystery. Cinnabar is the primary ore of mercury, a substance notoriously toxic to human neurological systems. Under the right conditions, especially in the stagnant, damp air of a subterranean shaft, it releases vapors that can cause tremors, hallucinations, and eventual death. This isn't just a hazard, it is a tactical advantage. If you were an apex predator looking for a sanctuary where no human being would dare to linger, a mercury-laden cavern is the ultimate fortress. It creates a natural, invisible barrier that keeps the modern world at bay. The Expedition Bigfoot crew demonstrated significant courage by even deploying a drone into these depths, knowing that the very air inside could be a poison. However, the most chilling discovery wasn't the toxicity of the rocks, but the presence of vibrant, green plants hundreds of feet below the surface. In the absolute darkness of a deep earth tunnel, photosynthesis is impossible. Biology dictates that these plants should have withered and turned to gray dust within days. Yet, they were fresh. This leads to a singular, inescapable conclusion: they were brought there recently. We are looking at evidence of a base of operations, a place where something is actively maintaining its environment, perhaps even using these plants for bedding or food storage. The implications of these green plants suggest that what we are seeing is only the tip of an immense, subterranean iceberg. Geologists have long known that the Pacific Northwest is riddled with lava tubes, limestone caverns, and forgotten mining networks that stretch for hundreds of miles. If these tunnel systems are connected, it provides a perfect explanation for the creature's most frustrating habit: its ability to vanish into thin air. A witness might see a 10-foot-tall figure standing on a ridge, but by the time they reach the spot, the area is empty. It is not just about the density of the trees, it is about what lies beneath the root systems. These creatures are likely using the Earth's crust as a highway, moving beneath our feet to bypass thermal cameras, satellites, and human settlements. This would allow a population of large primates to thrive in one of the most heavily scouted regions of the world without ever being pinned down. They are not merely hiding in the woods. They are inhabitants of a world we have forgotten to look at. When we turn our attention to the Wasatch Front footage, the physical reality of this creature becomes impossible to ignore. In that video, the subject is seen navigating through 7 feet of fresh powder snow. For a human, or even a large bear, this kind of terrain is a death trap. The physical exertion required to lift one's weight through that depth of snow would lead to cardiovascular collapse in minutes. Yet, this creature moved with a steady, rhythmic pace that suggested no signs of fatigue. The most telling moment was when it paused to look around. That single movement revealed a high level of situational awareness. It wasn't reacting with the panicked instinct of an animal, it was checking its back trail, assessing the distance between itself and any potential pursuers. This is the behavior of an intelligent being that understands it is being watched. The helicopter pilot who spotted the tracks before the wind erased them provided the final piece of physical validation. Those tracks were deep and heavy, confirming that this was no digital trick or optical illusion of light and shadow. There was immense physical mass behind those movements, a weight that left a permanent mark on the landscape, if only for a few minutes. While the visual evidence is compelling, the biological data found by researchers like Maria is where the mystery moves from speculation to hard science. Hair samples recovered from these transit corridors are currently undergoing rigorous testing.
But early reports suggest DNA sequences that do not match anything in the current North American database.
While we wait for final lab results, we have to consider the eyewitness accounts from those who operate on the fringes of society, specifically military special ops teams. These elite units have reported hearing vocalizations in the deep wilderness that defy traditional classification. They describe screams with a metallic, haunting quality, almost as if the sound is being produced by a biological mechanism we don't understand. These are not the growls of a cougar or the howls of a wolf. They are complex, high-decibel communications that can travel for miles through dense timber. It is a sound that defines the true nature of the wilderness, a warning that our maps are incomplete. The work of researchers like Bryce Johnson is finally bringing these disparate threads together. The humanoid figure captured on the 24-hour surveillance cameras was the final piece of the puzzle for the most recent mission. The way it moved across the frame had a grace and fluidity that no bear, even one walking on its hind legs, could ever hope to imitate. The skeletal structure and the weight distribution pointed toward a bipedal organism designed for high-speed movement in rugged terrain. Hands down, the collective evidence from the military, technical experts, and field researchers is converging on a singular truth. We are sharing the woods with something that is faster, stronger, and infinitely better at tactical concealment than we are. The old stories told by indigenous cultures were not myths, they were warnings. The truth that nobody could unsee after looking at this data is that the wilderness still holds giants, and they have been watching us from the shadows of their Cinnabar fortresses much longer than we have been looking for them. Could these massive creatures be living in an underground network right beneath our feet? Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more.